the world is veiled in darkness, the wind stops, the sea is wild, and the earth begins to rot. The people wait, their only hope a prophecy. When the world is in darkness, 4 warriors will come. After a long journey, 4 young warriors arrive, each holding an orb. But not this orb. This was just the only thing I had to use as a prop. However, there are real Final Fantasy orbs out there that you can get, like this one. Very nice. These were given as prizes in the Final Fantasy Treasure Quest, sponsored by Nintendo Power. Although it wasn't in this issue of Nintendo Power again. That was the only one I had to use as a prop. No, it was this issue of Nintendo Power from 1990. In it, along with their Final Fantasy strategy guides, there was this Final Fantasy Treasure Quest. The way it worked was you had to play the game to answer these trivia questions. And I'll read you the little blurb here they had hyping it. The ultimate fantasy. All summer long, the excitement has been building over Final Fantasy and the Final Fantasy Treasure Quest. From power staffs to real suits of armor, the treasure has been awesome. But now it's time for the most exciting contest of all. By correctly answering 2 tough questions from the game, some lucky power player will wind up with a fantasy come true, and 50 runners-up will each win a special prize. It won't be easy, though. Finding hidden treasure never is. But in Final Fantasy, half the fun is looking. There's even a special bonus contest in this issue, so check out the fun and send in your entry. After you answered the trivia questions and sent in your entry, they would have a random drawing among the... Put that in there. They would have a random drawing among the correct entries to select their winners. The grand prize was, of course, this cool vacation. I'll read this. Have you ever dreamed of yourself in a tropical paradise, surrounded by sea and sand, a volcano rising at your back, a land where pirates hid vast fortunes in underwater caves and built fortresses to protect their booty from unwelcome adventurers? That dream will become reality for 1 lucky winner and 3 loyal companions in the Final Fantasy Treasure Quest. The 4 adventurers will explore an ancient fort, sail to mysterious caves, and use hidden clues to find a wealth of treasure. Sounds pretty cool. And unless the island was like some freaky weird island like Lost, where you get trapped there and chased around by polar bears and other weird stuff, but it's probably not like that. The 50 runners-up, of course, got one of these cool Final Fantasy orbs, only 50 of which were made. Now, that's all very interesting, but what good does that do me today? I can't hop in a DeLorean and go back in time to enter the Final Fantasy Treasure Quest to get my hands on one of these orbs, but you can get one of these orbs. Where? Well, the same place you find pretty much everything else in the world, eBay! And the starting bid is only $250,000. Well, that's a pretty good deal if you need an orb to save the world from darkness. Actually, it's not. What bugs me about this auction is the guy doesn't even give you the option to go on a quest for him to save his daughter from a cave demon or something so that he'll give you the orb. Doesn't he know how these things work? Anyway, this wasn't the first time he put his orb on auction. It's been up several times. The first time he figured it would be so in demand that someone would want to skip the bidding process and just buy it now for $1 million! That didn't happen. But I'll read you some of his auction here. This awesome collectible is a must-have for the serious collector and Final Fantasy enthusiast. Only 50 of these Final Fantasy crystal orbs were made and distributed worldwide. Nintendo Power said the mold was broken after making the orbs. It is made of solid lead crystal. The crystal orb is etched with the legend Final Fantasy. A shield with a crossed axe and sword are etched above. This can be viewed when looking through the crystal orb. The orb has been signed by the artist Cusack. Be among the 50 lucky people in the world who own such a desirable collectible. And of course, although over 6,000 people viewed his auction, nobody bid. I suppose those people are waiting for one of the other 49 people in the world who own an orb to give them a quest to partake in to earn the right to get one of these orbs. I mean, you'd think people would be a little more generous with their orbs when you need one to save the world from darkness. I mean, it's not like it's going to affect him or anything if the world's destroyed, right? Anyway, here's the certificate that he showed on his auction page. There were pictures, that's where I stole most of these from. Dear winner, congratulations on being chosen as one of the 50 second place winners in Nintendo Power's September-October Final Fantasy Treasure Quest. Your prize, a beautiful custom-designed crystal orb, was made by Cusack Glass in Seattle. We don't know if it has the power to challenge chaos. What? You're going to pay $1 million, or maybe even $250,000 for an orb that doesn't even work against chaos? Rip off. But it is certain to be a collector's item, I guess. Thanks for playing with power. Yours very truly, Nintendo Power Staff. It is a pretty cool looking orb, though. It would be nice to have one, although I wouldn't pay $250,000 for it. Okay, also in this issue of Nintendo Power, there was the bonus contest, which involved finding a Warmech, which is a very rare monster. You could only find it on the bridge that led to Tiamat in the Tower of Air. You were supposed to take a picture of the screen where you found the Warmech and send it in, and they would have a random drawing, and the prize was to get your name in an upcoming game. A little internet research turned up that a guy named Chris Houlihan had won this contest, and he had his name put in the Super Nintendo game A Link to the Past. There's a secret room somewhere in there where you can find him. If you're interested in that, just Google up Chris Houlihan and find out for yourself. The interesting thing I found on this page was this bizarre little picture down here. It's just weird. Let me zoom in on that so you can see it. That's not it. Okay. Wrong. I don't even know how all these tentacle porn pictures even got on my computer. Here it is. Anyway, you have this kid in this really dimly lit room playing Final Fantasy with a disturbingly attractive cat watching him. He's got his NES here on this table. Sidebar. It is pronounced NES, as in NES Advantage. It is not pronounced N-E-S, as I hear some people pronouncing it in video reviews. See, the most authoritative source on the internet, Wikipedia, says, the New York Times Guide recommends following each segment with a period when the letters are pronounced individually, as in KGB, but not when pronounced as a word, as in NATO. The logic of this style is that the pronunciation is reflected graphically by the punctuation scheme. So you see, since it's spelled N-E-S and not N.E.S. it's pronounced NES, not N-E-S. If you pronounce it N-E-S, you're doing it wrong. Just like this is pronounced laser. It is not pronounced L-A-S-E-R, even though the letters stand for light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. That's right, I'm very smart. Anyway, if you look right here, if you look right here, it appears that he's holding up his controller right in front of his face. It's very strange. He's got his NES on his table, and he appears to be he's hunched over the table, straddling the NES, and he's you see that, right? That's not just me imagining how pervy this looks in this dimly lit room. Okay, actually, after studying this picture for more hours than I care to admit, I think I figured out what's really going on here. Since it was with the Warmech challenge, I think they're showing him with a camera, taking a picture of his game screen to send in as an entry. But even if he's not, some weird kid in a dark room, humping his NES, while holding his controller in front of his face, while his cat watches him, he's an idiot. Because the contest was to take a picture of a Warmech, and he's obviously on the overworld map here. He's out in the desert. You can see his little fighter there, about to go in a cave, surrounded by mountains. It's not a Warmech. You know, I think I like my original interpretation better. But that still looks pervy no matter how you interpret it. I'm going to go back to the picture of tentacles because it's less pervy than this. Anyway, all this information is good and great, but what does that have to do with me? Well, I'm glad I asked. You see, back in 1990, I didn't even own a Nintendo. However,